Bonjour, my name is Majakwood, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit about grief and the grieving process and how it's so difficult to grieve these days in the Native American community from my perspective. And let's just get it started. The reason why I'm trying to bring this up is because of one, we got a huge problem with it. These days and age, we got people out there that are grieving that's completely toxic, and it's getting passed down from generation to generation. Their grief process consists of more trauma added into the situation, and then it becomes a learned behavior from their kids. And for example, I'll use mine. When I was a kid, I used to watch aunties and uncles and moms sitting at the table, and they'll be drinking, right? And it's what they call a crying jag. And we would see them crying over a loved one. And I never really knew what the hell that was about when I was a kid, you know. And however, that's my very first glimpse at how I'm supposed to react, how I'm supposed to cope with my grief when I lose somebody that I loved. Now, I'll fast forward in time a little bit to when I lost my mother. When I lost my mother, I was already dabbling into my addiction, and when she did die, that's when my addiction turned completely dark. I started using heavier drugs. I started using harder drugs. I started hurting a lot more people around me. You know, and there's a lot of things that we don't even know. Like, there's a lot of things that people don't even say about grieving. And I'll just, you always hear the just stay strong. Just stay strong, man. Just stay strong, man. When actually it should mean that this will not kill you. When you mourn and grieve, you'll live through this. You're stronger than this tragedy, brother. And it's okay to not be strong through this. And for a Native American man, it's harder, I believe, as a man, for the stigma to actually grieve properly, because we have to be so hardened throughout this life. It's harder for us to express these feelings that have been throughout our lives kept, like our feelings kept secret, ashamed of them even. So it's the weakness and the vulnerability which often comes out as anger. It really, really does. And everybody talks about the 5 or 7 stages of grief. Shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, tested, and then acceptance. So I'm gonna take you a little bit through my part of the grieving. And these are these are the 5 things that nobody's ever said about when it's grieving. Number 1 is we could grieve for more than people that are just dying. We could grieve for a whole entire way of life. I've seen people grieve for their grandmother dying, and then grieve for the whole entire family structure switching up, because that grandmother was the matriarchal figure, the spine to that whole entire family, and that whole entire family be lost and confused. And I remember that, and that's exactly what happened with my grandmother when she passed, is that there was no more grandma's house. And that way of life, our family wasn't as close anymore. We weren't as close. We didn't go to each other's house anymore. And it moves us away from each other and keeps us, not bonded as a family. And that could lead us into our depression, and we just wish that we had that back, wishing we could have something back, and the second one is what I was talking about before, is just stay strong. And this really goes like hand in hand with the denial phase of grief. Just stay strong. Like we can actually stay strong for losing somebody that was so important to us, people that we think that we cannot live without. When I lost my mother, I thought for sure I could not live without her. And sometimes still to this day, I don't even know how I am. But I'm keeping going on. And the guilty phase. People get like the left behind syndrome or a survivor's guilt. Like my time when I had survivor's guilt was when I was with my cousin Jolene, and we were kids, and she was a good worker, beautiful smile, worked so hard, and I was so proud of her, and she was going to be like a pillar of the family, and I was just like, man, Jolene, she's going to grow up to be strong, everybody was saying about how great and how proud they were of Jolene, and then she tragically dies from a medication accident, and I remember saying, why couldn't you just take me to the Creator? Why couldn't you take me? I'm not going to be about shit. I ain't going to be about shit. And at least if Jolene was here, our family would be better off. So that's, that is very toxic. That I should have, I wish, if only. I should have gave her a hug the last time I seen her instead of be so petty about that pack of cigarettes that I left in her car and she won't drop them off. I wish I would have treated her well. I wish I told her I loved her every single day. If only I was a better son. If only she could see me now. And there's a way to turn all that guilt. We could turn it, we could shift all this guilt. I should have, I wish, if only. I wish I told her I loved her every day. And it's tearing me up inside. I could learn from that, my regrets, and use them in my life. Now I understand how empathetic I am, really. How empathetic am I really? And we are using this guilt now to bring nutrition into my new life. Now I'm going to start telling people that I love them every single day while they're still here. While they're still in this world, I'm going to make sure that I tell them I love them every single day. In honor of my mother not being able to say that to her. In honor of Jolene. In honor of Emily. In honor of Savannah. And all the rest of them. All the ones that have gone. I will make sure that I say that from now on. And it's going to mean more. Because now I'm going to love you while you're here and not love you while you're gone. And time means little. I'm going to number 4. Time means very little to the grieving process. It doesn't heal all wounds. Stay strong, it will get better. We hear that a lot. We hear it so much. Stay strong. It'll get better in time. And from my experience is that time does not heal all wounds. There's scars, there's gashes across the heart that will stay bleeding for years and years and years. And you will grieve and you will feel that pain. And then as soon as you think that pain is over, a song, a moment, a smell, a place could trigger that again, and then it would be opened all over again, and it hits you like a ton of bricks. And the example that I could think about that is when I was listening to Michael Jackson's song, I'll Be There, and I remember my mom, she'd be sipping on a brew, cleaning up the house, and that song would be playing, you know what I mean? And she'd be singing it to her babies, talking about how she was Mama Bear and she was taking care of us, and it was 6 or 7 years after she passed away, and I thought I was straight. I thought I was good. And I heard that song on the radio. And my girlfriend at the time, she was looking at me, and just tears started coming down my face out of nowhere. And I never, still at that time, even properly, if there is a proper way, and we'll get into that later, I've never properly grieved for her. It was so mismanaged, the way that I handled that death, and it affected my life, and it affected my life for the good and for the bad, and we'll also get into that in a little while. So time, some scars never fade, and then accepting all of what happened. Making sure that you will never ever know, or making sure that you will always remember this, is that acceptance is not just going to be put onto your plate. Like, all right, one day comes along, here you go, boom, you wake up and you accept it. It takes steps to get there. You have to take them steps. It's more than just admitting that you've lost someone. And also to remember that when you do accept the loss, that it's not the end of the grieving process. Just because you accepted that they're gone, there's no finish line. There's no end of the race. The process is not done. You may go through the acceptance process multiple times throughout your life. Accepting, re-accepting. So what brought me into all of this is why are we so better, or why are we so hard on ourselves and hard on our relatives and loved ones when it comes to this situation? Why do we come out in such a toxic way? And then the question came up, Victor, is there a proper way to grieve? So I start asking people about that. Is there a proper way to grieve? And I started thinking about that. So I started asking around, and I started getting opinions, and I went to my social media, and I lit up some of the people on social media that I love and I respect, and my elders that are on there, and some people that really support me. And I've come back with a lot of interesting facts. But I'm going to have to show you that next time on the next episode. Me gooch.